Niu NQiX 500, the electric scooter that's usually used by pizza couriers, here with me on the hot lap test track. So can you actually deliver a piping hot pizza in sporty fashion with this scooter? That's obviously an important test criterion because these electric vehicles like the Niu NQX are typically used by delivery fleets in various major cities around the world. For whatever reason, they're turning to electric vehicles. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's more accessible for the riders, or perhaps it's due to regulations in city centers. But the fact is, as you may have already seen in Dubai, London, wherever, they really do like to use electric scooters. And as far as I can tell from looking at the industry and also from the experiences my kids have had with electric vehicles, Niu is one of the premium brands when it comes to electric scooters and also electric kick scooters. They're even making motorbikes now. We've got a different video in the series featuring one of their bikes. But what can this one actually do on the test track? What's important with this hot lap video series is that we're not interested in things like how long it takes to charge or how much storage space it has. We just want to know how well it rides. First of all, the throttle response from the motor, well, Niu really nails that across all their vehicles. That very first bit of throttle or torque input is incredibly well done. They've really got that right. There's no slack, no lag, and that hasn't always been the case. I've tested quite a few electric vehicles before where you had a slight delay, especially mid-corner when you're applying torque. So even if you've only ridden petrol scooters before, you'll immediately get a feel for how far to twist the throttle, how much of that translates to the rear wheel, how strongly it accelerates, a great connection between your thoughts, your feel, and the motor. That works brilliantly here. And you tend to get a nice surprise when setting off from a low speed in terms of what the power delivers. But if you're familiar with petrol engines, then once you're into the mid-range of revs and speed, you might feel a bit let down because it doesn't really have any more to give. That's typical of these small electric categories. They start to feel a bit underwhelming towards the top end. As for me, from a seating position point of view, I've got to say, wearing leathers on a scooter isn't ideal because you don't get the knee angle those leathers are designed for. It pinches a bit. But I have to say, I'm a grown European adult, and for this kind of scooter, it fit really well. I had plenty of room. I could make full use of the steering angle. It was all spot on. It felt like a proper city scooter to me, and I managed to reach some decent speeds here. You'll see it on the display during the lap. I think it was around 85, 90 or something in that ballpark. I had enough space on the seat and could move around dynamically enough. There were basically two issues with this vehicle during the hot lap test lap that I'd say held me back and prevented better lap times. Let me tell you what those two problems were. Point number one, lean angle is limited by something that feels quite rigid and solid and that immediately creates a sense of instability. So when you lean into a corner, something touches down and sends a really sharp jolt through the chassis. It's the kind of feedback that makes you think, right, that's it, no more lean angle possible. And that's fair enough, there's just no more room to go further. The second issue is that as soon as you touch either of the brakes, the torque delivery to the rear wheel is instantly cut. That means you can't do what a sporty rider would normally do, brake into the corner progressively and roll on the throttle at the same time to power out smoothly. That's just standard for anyone used to sporty motorbike riding, but this scooter doesn't like it. And it's odd because the electric motorbike I rode earlier from Niu handled that brilliantly. You could brake progressively and open the throttle at the same time, and it worked. But on this scooter, the moment you pull the brake lever, it cuts power to the back wheel. So if you're a more consistent rhythm-based rider who brakes smoothly and wants to accelerate out properly, you end up with this on-off situation. You've got to completely finish braking before you can start accelerating again. Unfortunately, a few electric vehicles still have this issue. The Suron or the Talaria, those electric motocross bikes do the same. I've always found that annoying because it prevents you from finding that natural balance between throttle and brake the way you're used to on petrol bikes. That's just the way it is. I don't know who exactly they're targeting with this. If they're aiming at traditional petrol riders, then these are definitely the kinds of things that'll bother them. Maybe for people who've already ridden electric scooters and are moving up to something like this, it's not a big deal. The brakes themselves were actually better than I expected. Deceleration was stronger and the overall braking stability was solid. But the moment you brake, the hazard lights kick in and it makes these slightly annoying sounds because the system assumes you're in an emergency. That's a bit of a nuisance. Some bikes do this now. When you hit the brakes hard, they start flashing lights and making warning noises in every direction. Really annoying, but that's just how it is. All in all, I'd say this is a scooter you could compare to others in terms of brake quality, suspension performance, overall stability, and chassis feel. I'd roughly place it in the category of 250 to 300 cc scooters, so definitely above the 125 class, where you often get very basic setups on petrol bikes. I'd rank it a bit higher than that. But when it comes to something like a Yamaha X-Max or other segment leaders in terms of suspension performance or braking stability, it can't really keep up anymore. That's the way to think about it if you're familiar with this scooter category. Overall, I'm really curious to see how it stacks up against petrol scooters, because next I'll be riding the new Vespa GTS, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the two compare. You'll be able to check that out for yourself in the Hot Lap leaderboard.